Okay, let's just address the elephant in the room. The line between sports and politics, yeah, it's pretty much completely vanished. We see it every single day, but it rarely explodes quite like we saw in a recent commentary by the YouTube channel A Righteous Perspective. Today, we're diving into this explainer to unpack their genuinely fascinating take on a major cultural flashpoint. We're talking college football, a former president, and an absolute media meltdown. It's literally a perfect case study in how our modern culture processes controversy, and we're going to break down exactly what these hosts are arguing.
So here's our game plan. First, the Jaxson Dart controversy. 2, debating double standards. 3, the backlash and the boom. 4, critiquing mainstream media. And finally, owning the complicit label. Let's get right to it.
All right, Section 1, the Jaxson Dart controversy, the inciting incident.
So the internet absolutely lost its mind when Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart stood up and introduced Donald Trump at a political rally. And the source really zeroes in on this specific reaction from Dart's own teammate, Abdul Carter, who posted, "Thought this was AI, what we doing, man?" The host make the point that this public post was basically throwing gasoline on the fire. It took a political moment and dragged it right into a public locker room dispute. Now, the commentators do mention that these two players later cleared the air, man-to-man, and everything is supposedly fine. But they argue that airing this out on social media, instead of just sending a text, that was a massive, unforced error that just ripped the floodgates open for intense media scrutiny.
Moving right along, Section 2, debating double standards and the cultural clash.
Now, what's super interesting about this part of the breakdown is how the hosts frame the entire conflict. They are arguing there is a glaring, massive hypocrisy in how the media covers athlete activism. Their point is, when athletes introduce Democratic presidents, like Barack Obama or Joe Biden, they are universally celebrated, right? They get praised for showing agency, stepping up, and bravely using their platform. But, the commentators argue, the exact second an athlete introduces Donald Trump, that very same media establishment immediately pushes back with intense scrutiny and what they describe as thought policing. It essentially boils down to an argument about who actually gets permission to be political in public.
According to the source material, having the ability to support whoever you want isn't just a liberal mindset. They argue it's a fundamental exercise of free will, and they make a really grounded, practical point here that kind of cuts through all the noise. Athletes are, at the end of the day, just co-workers. What they do on their own time is their own business. The hosts argue that Jaxson Dart owes literally nobody an apology for his personal political choices. Actually, they heavily praise the guy for holding his ground and not just throwing out some standard PR-generated apology just to get people off his back.
Which brings us to Section 3, the backlash and the boom. A financial positive.
You guys, this part is wild. The hosts point out that the media outrage actually backfired and resulted in a massive, totally unintended financial windfall for Dart. We are talking over 200,000 jersey sales post-incident. 200,000! The backlash basically acted like a giant megaphone, making his jersey the absolute #1 seller in the entire league. For the commentators, this number is a crucial piece of data. They use it to prove that mainstream media outrage totally doesn't always match how the general public actually feels. In fact, these suggest that getting slammed by the media can sometimes trigger this massive grassroots support, which completely rewarded the exact behavior the media was trying to shut down.
Okay, Section 4, critiquing mainstream media and calling out echo chambers.
Because the public ended up supporting Dart so heavily, the hosts shift gears and take aim at the daytime TV personalities who sparked the initial outrage. And let me tell you, they pull absolutely no punches here. They call out Sunny Hostin for labeling Trump supporters as complicit, arguing that her own past controversies pretty much strip away her moral high ground. They also critique sports journalist Jemele Hill. But their biggest target by far? The View. The commentators argue that the show operates as this impenetrable ideological echo chamber. They actually point to former host Elizabeth Hasselbeck's super brief return as proof, claiming that shows like this intentionally cut short or silence dissenting voices because they just can't handle strong, articulate, opposing opinions shaking up their daytime audience.
So how do they suggest fixing this? Well, they have a very specific pitch. They formally propose putting conservative author Celeste Duffy right on The View's panel, while Joy Behar takes a hiatus. They argue Duffy would aggressively challenge the dominant narratives in real time. They don't just want token representation, they want someone who is going to hold the panel's feet to the fire and demand they apply their exact same critical standards to politicians on the political left.
All right, finally, Section 5, owning the complicit label, a tactical response.
Complicit. It means involved with others in an illegal activity or wrongdoing. The source zeroed right in on Sonny Hostin's specific use of this highly charged word. Hostin's argument was, basically, if you support a candidate with certain biases, you are, by definition, complicit. But instead of just getting mad and rejecting that premise, the commentators do something really interesting. They take the heavy weight of that exact word and flip it into a surprising, highly tactical strategy for their audience to use when they face similar accusations.
Instead of getting all defensive, they advise leaning completely into the label using a 4-step playbook. Step 1, do not run away or apologize. Just don't do it. Step 2, aggressively agree. Literally say, yes, I am complicit. Step 3, use that exact opening to proudly justify your specific political stances. And step 4, immediately flip the script. The whole idea here is to totally derail the attack by owning the insult, and then turning it right back around by saying, okay, now let me tell you what you are complicit with, and pointing to historical policies supported by the political left. It is a fascinating conversational dominance strategy designed to literally stop media shaming right in its tracks.
Which brings us to the core of this whole debate. When we look at this Jaxson Dart incident and the massive media storm that followed, this explainer leaves us with a seriously provocative question to chew on. When an athlete steps up to a political podium, are we actually celebrating their free will? Or are we really just policing whether or not they happen to be on the approved side of the aisle? It's a super compelling look at the true state of ideological tolerance in our modern media landscape. And it absolutely leaves you wondering where the actual line between sports, politics, and personal freedom gets drawn today.